The dulcimer originated in the Appalachian Mountains in the late 17th century. Its roots can be traced to the Scotch, Irish, and German settlers who brought their various musical traditions and instruments with them to the New World. The settlers adapted and modified these instruments to suit their new landscape, creating a uniquely American folk instrument. Dulcimers were traditionally made entirely from one type of wood, usually something common to the area where the maker lived. I'm using Bald Cypress for this project because it's available in large pieces and it is almost entirely not free. However, this project is something of an experiment for me, so I'm going to part with tradition in a few respects. First, I'm going to make my dulcimer with a wide soundboard to give it more volume. Second, I'm going to give it a carved top like a mandolin or a violin, with the expectation that will give me better projection and clarity. Third, I'm going to carve the fingerboard as an integral part of the top of the instrument. On an instrument with a flat top, the fingerboard is glued on once the soundbox has been constructed, but this presents a problem for my project. It's going to be difficult to match two pieces of wood together perfectly, but I think I can work around this and save some time by making the fingerboard and top out of one piece of wood. Before we get to cutting wood, I'm going to give a quick run through of my process so you understand where I'm going with this. Imagine that I have a log and we're looking at the end view right now. My plan is to start by cutting a slab in a way that is said to be quarter sawn, which means that the growth rings in the wood run perpendicular to the face of the board. That's important because when the wood in the dulcimer expands or contracts, the growth rings will want to curl the same way they grew around the tree, and then the dulcimer could warp or crack. If the grain is running perpendicular to the board, there's going to be a lot less movement. I've already cut some slabs of wood, so you won't get to see that, but the wood I've cut isn't really flat or square, so I'm going to clean them up with a router. Once the wood is flat on both sides, I can use the router again to cut steps in the log like this. And I get something that looks like this. After that, I can knock off the corners of the steps with a chisel, get everything smoothed out, and we end up with this shape, which is the profile of the instrument.
Let's get started. I put this router sled together using some scrap wood I had laying around. I know it's not perfect and it doesn't look very impressive, but it will get the job done. I'm going to make several passes because there's some areas that are higher than the rest, and there are also a couple of tear-outs that need to be removed. You can see that I'm taking off quite a bit of material. When I started, the wood was between 2 and 1 3/4 inches thick. I need the final piece to be at least 1 1/4, but I'm going to leave some extra on this side if I can. If I were to do this again, I would have built the router sled slightly differently, so there's some extra space between the work and the frame. I left about half an inch of clearance, but it's still a little tight. After the first pass. It's a lot better, but you can see that there's still some chainsaw marks and one low spot left, so I'm going to give it another pass. I'm sure you've noticed that this is a slow process, so I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video a little bit. I flipped the board over, and I'm now working on the other side. It's a lot better, but there's still a lot of material to be removed. Here's the other side of the board. You can see there's some natural coloration down towards the bottom, and I wish I could include that in the Dulcimer, but unfortunately most of it's going to get cut off. There's also a few knots showing up, but I don't think they're going to be a problem.
Before I start carving out the steps on top of the Dulcimer, I need to cut the fingerboard profile. The fingerboard is the center line and the highest point of the instrument, so both the horizontal and vertical profiles are measured from it. Even though I'll have to redo my pattern later, nailing this part is crucial because once it's cut, that's where it stays.
Cutting the fingerboard might seem simple, but it's really important to make sure it's straight. Taking it slow with multiple passes to make sure I don't make any irreversible mistakes. Cranked up the speed, and I'm going to do this on both sides. carving a strip down the middle of the fingerboard to hollow it out. That's going to shed some weight, but it's really aimed at increasing the volume and responsiveness of the instrument. This is typically done from underneath, but I'm coming in from the top since I plan to glue a fretboard on later. Well, I didn't cover as much ground in this video as I'd hoped, but that's the nature of the creative process. Sometimes things take a little longer than expected. The difference between completing a project and doing a good job often comes down to investing that extra bit of time. I'm planning to make a couple more videos before I finish this project, and I'll be rolling those out sometime soon. Keep an eye open if you'd like to see more. Thanks for tuning in.